All right. Hello, guys. I'm going to give you guys a little rundown of my track Time Is Right, which I had composed in about 2002 in October. This track is out on Mango Sounds, a cool cool label out in Russia. This is the second track that I put out on their label, and this is like a really piano house added with a talk box, but the thing that I'm using is not a talk box. It's called an electro spit, which was invented by a music producer out in the States in the Bay Area. I've met him before at a conference called EDM Biz. Really cool guy. His name's Bosco. I could probably leave a link in the YouTube description of where you can get it. Yeah, it's really cool because the talk box does take a lot of skill to use. I do have a talk box, and using talk box is very skill. It's a really hard skill to grasp, having a tube in your mouth versus just putting something on your neck, and it's super easy. But yeah. So some of the decisions that I made are quite from a while back, and they're just done for a reason. And it's just how I felt when doing it, and some stuff I probably might not do. But let's just go through a little preview of the track before I show you what I've done. So let's get into it. We'll go to the screen, and here we go. This is basically a full printout of the mix, because I use like an SSL subbing VCA channel, which is basically any big pop record in the world is made on an SSL, or yeah, it's a chosen console used in the world, and having just the VCAs, the circuitry of it, helps to give the track an opening feel, and in general to give more harmonic distortion. In general, I don't really feel like I'm distorting any tracks here, but it gives me more headroom to push things more in general. Yeah. I really do feel like I'm an audio person that just kind of does stuff that works, and kind of just, if it sounds good, it works. Nothing's wrong or right with as long as everything sounds great and people are resonating to it on the dance floor, that's what matters. But here's a little peek or preview. There we go. So I guess we'll start with like everything that's processed on this printed mix as into being right here. Everything is done right here. Right here, I've sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts with my kids here, but I've saved everything off in the side signals of around 200 hertz. So if you really take a listen, it's probably better to have it with all the bass in. If you notice, the bass has a little more punch when doing it, because I'm dumping all the stereo frequencies off in general. Like if you check out, let's keep this plugin open because I'm only using one. Okay, so this is a cool plugin used that from Master in the Mix. So if you listen to the side, so we're only monitoring the sides of the track here. So once I bypass, you can hear all the bass kicking in, right? Versus doing that, the kick and like the bass line is not as prominent in that side, within the sides of the track, right? So it helps to make it breathe more and just to to pump it, because the bass frequencies take up way too much room within a stereo mix. So you want to make sure all your low end is panned right in the middle in general, because it helps a lot to just also slam the mix just to give it the punch. Excuse me if my words aren't chosen of what I'm doing. I feel it's not easy being a teacher in explaining what I do, but hopefully it's coming across that people are understanding what I'm doing and why. Then I use Safari, which is like a Waves plugin on it, and it basically, it's a preset. I really don't move this preset around, and I do use presets in general and kind of just wave things around to see how it works. Just because it just makes my workflow a little bit faster in general. If you check here, look at that. Let's take this off. Now it's not just breathing through the side, but this is a handy plugin just to know in general too. Just, if you have your punch is still good, right? So like you could monitoring. Excuse me, there, young children. Do you mind just calming down? I've got my kids in the background. Let's see. So like dynamic. So usually when mixing, I have this window up on my computer there to see if everything's working out in the sense of like the dynamics and the punching. As long as everything's green, you know that it's decent enough for a mastering engineer to work with. I mean, at the same time, use your ears, but it does help to follow some of these type of things when mixing down your tracks. This plugin is absolutely my best friend, and as long as everything is in the green, it's fine. There is some songs that I do where it goes a little bit yellow in some areas. That can be in climax areas, which is like build-ups, and it's just sometimes I can't fix it, and I'm not going to cry over spilled milk as long as the outcome of everything is working. I just don't want to spend time tweaking forever. I just want to move on and get to the next track, because I find if you're producing music, in order to get better, you need to finish your tracks and just finish them, and the dance floor can judge it after. There's songs out there that probably don't have the best sounding quality of a mix, but some of these records are great because people resonate with them. Your outcome is to make the best sounding record you can, and that happens over time in general. So always be patient. Excuse my children. But yeah, sorry, I'm all over the map with this. But yeah, if you check out here with Safari, here, it really gives like a 3D thing. Sorry about the slap back. Pro Tools is pretty hard to route things properly with OBS, but yeah, with Safari, it's basically just gives a nice 3D part to it, just in and out listening. Sorry, Safari. Excuse my dyslexia. And then what do I got here? I have the Oxford inflator. And this is kind of just like a saturator. And if you it basically, this plugin gives in tips in the sense of usually, yeah. So like, I'm basically using this plugin to kind of give it a little more low end, and also because I've run everything through the SSL summing, I've before printing, I've turned it down. Like I have everything at a mix level within it, so everything's kind of like redlining a little while I'm mixing, and then I turn everything down after. It's not redlining, but everything's at it because I have channels I can route audio into. I can just kind of punch it a bit, and then I'm not redlining on the actual tube bus. Think of it almost like the V10 has like a compressor thing when you put when you put a track in that's not mastered, and you can turn up the compression on the V10 mixer, and it'll keep up with your a track that's mastered. So using before, I remember on a Nexus, just a 900 mixer or DGM 900 mixer, you would turn the trim up because your track's not loud enough. So it's kind of like the same thing almost, if I can demonstrate that. Yeah. Let's see. Where? So I used a vintage tape, which gives it like a nice high end. And then turning down the bias gives it a little more high end in general. Kind of, that's more low end. And you see how the highs are getting just more color. I think I left emphasis at the same. Didn't screw with the harmonics. And then I think it's like if it's EPs, I think it is with tape machines. Yeah, so like the higher the faster you run the tape machine, I think it's like the more high end would happen, because I felt the mix was a lot more dull. What I'm doing now is that Pro Tools has a plugin called Heat, which goes along all the channels, and then I have everything in Pro Tools running at a pre-fade, in the sense of like it's recording to tape before, like how people did records back in the day, where it's like it went through a tape machine, then the console, which is kind of the same thing I'm doing with the summing there, right? Sorry, just my children in the background. And then to top everything off, I'm using Bass Room and Mix Room. So Bass Room just corrects what I've done, and same with Mix Room. These days, it's, everyone has access to. Everyone has. Sorry about my children. I'm really trying to do this video, but sometimes you just don't have babysitters, and you want to get stuff done. One sec. I'm just whining to my kids. So now it's, since everyone can get access to things nowadays, it's Bass Room, I think, is a good plugin for people that are starter or advanced, because I'm basically in a basement, and the dimensions of this room are not proper for mixing tracks. Like, I have a closet right here, and my studio is kind of located in not a great area of the room. It's almost kind of like a middle area, but I'm at a wall here, and then there's just an open room here. I just wanted to place this room in the sense of like, I have people record down there, in the sense of if a drum comes in here and I move a couch around, drum set comes in, which I've never recorded before, but I have enough channels to record a drum set and stuff like that. But screw these explanations. But if you check out, I'll turn the plugins off, with and without. So basically, that's my mix without the mix room and bass room plugins. So there's not much punch in general, but with adding it, it corrects it, and it's basically per se it's like an AI thing. This plugin reads what you're doing and corrects what you're doing. So it's basically I have it on a setting Star Engineers, right? So you can pick different styles of music, and I pick dance pop guru because I find with picking this setting, the people who work on pop records are usually very educated engineers. They've been doing it forever, and they sit in front of people. Nothing against people in dance music, but it's a whole different sector of engineers, and everyone in dance music does things themselves. But I find if you have a record, I think it's good you can pass it on to these type of people because it'll give you the best sounding record. And this is why I choose this setting, because I find in pop music and mainstream music, there's this balance in frequencies. I tend to not have my records just have really hard kicks. I just like this balanced sound that the high end can have its character within there. So yeah, this is kind of like an AI thing. I find that it just goes in, and if you look here, it's like it shows the white and green marks, right? The white marks are you, and then the green marks is what it's telling you to do, and you just move it around accordingly to match that, and it helps. Yeah, and then I take it to the car, and I start crying if it doesn't work properly. Usually with bass room and mix room, I find my process has streamed on a lot faster. Whereas if there's a problem with the mix, it's nothing to do with the low end. It's always to do with volume based. And I find even with mixing tracks, the best thing to do is it's all about your volume first before even if your volumes are right, you're going to have less problems. But yeah, I mean, this is just stuff I put on the back end of the mix. So I mix everything first before even adding these plugins. When mixing, because I have I have an input on Pro Tools. Let's just put a new track and have it blank, because now we're going to start running the IOs of how I've so like in here, basically have line 1 and 2. So like that's channel 1, then channel 3 and 4 and whatnot. Channel 5. I have 8 channels, and everything's just running, and like the vocals stay at 7 and 8. The effects are within 5. Stuff like that. And then I run tonal balance. I try to keep it in the middle, because they say that the crust factor, everything, if it's in the middle, it's gonna balance out in a system. It's cool to just have this plugin. I usually have it on my computer window, and I kind of just glance over. Yeah, I glance over and have this window here and this window over here, just to kind of see what's going on, and I just kind of peek over when I'm mixing the track down. I also have the waves analyzer, and this is just to see how everything's going in general. You probably don't want to do this, but I do not use reference tracks when mixing. I just haven't. It's not a good thing to do, and you should use reference tracks. That is something that I do wrong. Using reference tracks definitely help, and I just tend to not use them. It's like I always think that I should be using them. Endless Smile. Now, this is a plugin that I do not use anymore. And this is just doing like a filtered air thing. And it kind of just tweaks through and does a little. Let's see where right. The time is right. I wanna take back you all night. Yeah, so that's just adding a little tension within climaxes and breakdowns, and it's basically I use that on some other parts, and that's just in the master of the mix. Let's just have these all up so we can have more fun when listening. So let's start with the kick drum. Oh yeah, I forgot. We want to have this on solo enable. There we go. So every time I solo a track. So let's see. I have not, like I said, this is something that I made a year ago. So what I've done here is basically there in here. I have a sidechain compression at this frequency, which every time the bass hits, it's going to turn it down. So if you check it out here. So within those frequencies, the bass is always coming down. Let's see. I'll grab another. Let's see right here. So if you read here, there's KIK. Audio engineers cannot spell, including me. Good joke, right? So here, if you see, this is the kick here, because you can see just how the wave's moving, or sorry, how the frequency's moving, whatever. But basically, this is where, there you go. You could just even see there how so like that's just added in those spots. So if I disable it, you can even hear a difference of it not. So this is disabled. So now you can kind of hear that it's not fighting. It's just your bass and kick basically almost have to be as one. And I tend, and I think what's going on here too, because of Pro Tools, I was having problem with Pro Tools. Sometimes the sample rates will change, and then when you have to print some stuff. So I'm just trying to open up a window here to disable everything, because like I did other work. I usually do subtraction mixing first, because that's kind of the best way of mixing, is just subtracting everything and then adding everything. It's like they have a thing, you can't have a good mix if there's a dark and not a light. Just a saying. Oh man. Let's see. So let's open this up. So I've used, obsessed with SSL again. I only like SSL because I got to experiment with one in school, and I've not touched one ever since being out of school, and that's almost 15 years ago. So here I just have the kick drum at like 100 hertz, and then something raised about 3 dB or something. Maybe, I don't know. 1, 2, 3. I'm not sure how much I've never really done the math of just how much the strokes go from each bit, but maybe it's 5. Maybe it's about 5. So maybe, so it's at 5. Who knows? I'm just kind of looking at 5, 10, 15. So listen to that. Forget it. I'm just one of those guys that just does it by ear. I don't really, I understand. I have the basics of what works and what doesn't. So I boosted here at 100 hertz, then even around this area. I've made the bell curve more narrow, I guess is the word to use. And it's funny that English is my first language, and I just can't can't say things right. It's more. Let's see, and then 3 kilohertz, where the boost is happening, right? Or sorry, I'm basically this is gonna pick where I'm wanting to boost the frequency. If that helps. And then here is basically where I've done the boosting. So within the decibel level, and this is just picking how narrow. So yeah, there's not really much work being done there. And yeah, and then you press this to enable the EQ. So let's close that up. So Pro Tools has more processing power when showing this video. And then that's the plugin, and the Smiler. And then parallel aggression, which is basically a saturator. I have it doing 79% on the spank. This is just preserving the low end. So if you check this out, there we go. So see, all the tones are just pressed in. And then, so like here's more like the low end of it, and this is more like the high end of it. So it's like the tonality of the sound. And then this is just like audio gain to, basically, I just have that on audio gain to stay within the mix in general, so that it's just stays there. So I can, yeah. So these buttons are all pressed in, and yeah, you can see it's just per se, it's controlling the low end a little more. Yeah, and that just helps. I just find when picking, I usually, with a lot of my tracks, I boost everything at 100 hertz with the kick, and I don't really go into the more lower end region of 60 or 50, and I tend to use FabFilter harmonics key mixing. So like if you look here, it's just saying where it is, because like the key of the song, I'm not sure what the key of the song was. Let's see, I could probably find the plugin as to where I've used. One sec. Yes, so I think I used MIDI Wizard to compose this track, which is like another AI thing. So like I kind of go back and forth within how I do things. So sometimes I'll just make a bass line first, and then I have like a Unison Audio MIDI pack that has like every key with chords in it, and I kind of just slide in the root notes. I play the bass line, and it has the root notes in general. So it just makes things feel a little more organic to me, because I've made the bass line rather than the computer's done it, and then I'm moving things around. So let's go and find MIDI Wizard. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is where. Okay, so this is the melody. Let's see. Is it gonna play it? Oh man. Let's see. Don't mind my. Oh, I wonder why it's not doing it. I feel like I'm so rookie at this. So yes, I did use an M1 synth lead for this. Everything is routed to the MIDI Wizard. Not sure why. it's not playing, but it shows that it's doing it. Okay, I don't want to sit here trying to fix this because I want to make this video work fine. So yeah, MIDI Wizard basically I press this button and it makes a melody, and basically when I'm using this, it'll spit a melody, and then I can make it change sections of a melody, and sometimes I move notes around or just repeat things because it just randomly spits stuff out, and sometimes it's just pure utter stupidity of melodies, but it works fine. But usually my thing is just making a bass line first and then moving chords in with a MIDI pack. Yeah. So let's move on to the bass line. I feel like I just go all over the map when telling folks things. Okay. Sorry. Just need to tell my kids to be quiet. It's really hard to do this. Uh-oh. Okay. So, we'll pull up the bass. So this is the bass line. It sounds like something. I guess I have a filter on here. Weird. Okay, well, it's done for a reason. I don't know why I'm saying that. So yes, so the filter's on here for a reason, to make things interesting, and this is more at the start of the record. Let's see. Jeez. Okay. Yeah, so like it's at the start of the record to make everything interesting, because I did this mainly because a lot of the loops are quite repetitive. So it's like I'm not doing anything to them. It's like I made an 8-bar loop. It's funky, but I'm wanting to make it like I know it's like the key point of mixing the record in, and it still needs to be interesting if someone's sitting and listening to it. I mean, the formula is always just changing things up every 8 bars, which helps. But yeah, it's because, that's why I added this filter here on the bass line, and then it goes away. It's like waves one knob. I still tend to use that, and then I have the Ozone. This is like the imager. So what I'm doing is I'm taking out all at around like the 200 kilohertz area. I'm taking everything that's a stereo signal and pulling it out, and everything that's a stereo signal that's existing in the 200 hertz area is getting spread out. If you kind of check here, so like everything is panned mono, but it's still kind of having this feel in general. I can probably solo things to show you that it is possibly making a difference. All this back and forth stuff. To tell you, it's hard being a teacher. Well, I guess I'm not teaching. I'm just showing you, right? Let's see. So mainly, so this is good. So you can barely hear that bass in there, right? And then when you disable it, I don't really think it's doing much, and I think the other reason why we're not noticing a difference. See, I haven't really done this before, and I think it's because of that. So let's open this window up and see. Here we go. Just trying to gather my thoughts. So yeah, there is a difference, right? So this is because this is on top of the this here is like flushing out all the frequencies with the 200 hertz area, right? And it's just not letting it through. And versus when you're doing that, it's letting that through, right? So yeah, every I guess everything's just getting tamed for that. I kind of learned that through reading Tom Frant. When you buy these plugins, Tom Frampton, I think on Plugin Alliance or whatever, Tom Frampton has like a thing where you can get some ebooks and just read through things of mixing. Yeah, and some of the tips I've taken and I've run with it, and it works for me. I send my stuff to mastering for him because, he does things a certain way, and I follow the things that he does. So I trust him to master my stuff. I've sent my stuff to many mastering engineers, and some just want to push things as loud as possible, and that's not what the objective is. It's just to make something that's balanced and sounds great. So here, are we? No, okay. I just heard a bleep from my camera, but everything's fine. So even like here we have the parallel aggressor, and here I have. Oh, sorry. I gotta like make sure to turn things off, which I don't. There we go. So yeah, the parallel aggressor is really just along the same lines. I made it do like a punch thing, so if you notice, it's not punching as much. I want the bass line to punch. And then, yeah. Different tracks, I do it all different. Some depending when I'm mixing, I'm just like, I want everything. I want the bass. I usually like the bass line to be the thing you feel the most. And then the kick is just the thing that's there, that's thumping, but with a balance, right? Yeah. Some people do different. That's fine. And yeah, I mean, that's just how I like to mix my tracks. Let's see. I think I have like a print of more stuff. I don't. And then yeah, I used the Waves pumper a year ago. And now I'm using like. I changed over to using. Oh God. Forget it. My mind is so clouded right now to remember what it is. Let's move on to the clap in general, as into why I did what I did. So, nothing fancy, just more 800 hertz area, and this is kind of somewhere within the low mids of things. Let's see. Yeah, so just to give, you're wanting to complement everything within a mix to kind of have a balance, right? Yeah, so I look at these. I hope everyone's. Yeah, I kind of look over and look at these things to make sure everything's balanced, right? But like even when I start mixing, I have the fat filters over everything, and then I gain stage everything in the sense of like in here you can even see that the wave within the computer is turned down so that when I'm hitting the SSL, it's everything's going at minus 18. It's kind of like the sweet spot of a lot of analog equipment. Even the waves, even the UAD plugins want you to hit them at minus 18 because it's just the sweet spot of analog equipment in general. So yeah, as you can see, I've done some subtraction mixing here. I do, excuse me. I do have FabFilter do a majority of the work for me because I felt it's right over the time. Like I said, some of the advice I'm giving probably is not the right stuff, but I feel because we're in such a manufacturer of making music, especially in electronic music, that everyone's putting stuff out once a month. You got to really find your assembly line of how you can do things, and this is taken years of me planning just to have a thing that I can do things like an assembly line and everything's done right away. So in the sense of, excuse me, making a track in general, right? So yeah, I just have Fab Filters do a lot of the work, and I've beta tested it myself for saying that is it doing what I would do, in the sense of like I've swept around as to what sounds bad in frequencies. So like I did the test and go, okay, it usually does pick what I want. So I've kind of just almost let it do the work. But usually when I've laid out everything, so like, the claps, I have a filter on here. The kicks in general will start with a filter here. And this is like, it's just doing it in mono. You can pick like how you want Fab Filters to pick how you're EQing stuff. So yeah, I have everything in the mids area of the mono spectrum of the oh Christ of the mono spectrum of doing things. So yeah, usually when I start with the basses, it's the same thing with the bass line. I have a cut at 130, sometimes 135 to get the smile within the bass. Oh Lord. Yeah, so that's what happens there. Like you can even see here, I wouldn't have this there. It just would be here because that's the clap, even the crash. The crash here, it's like I don't need anything here, right? Or let's see. So like even if you look, because it's bypassed. Let's bypass this. So if you look, there's a lot of, sometimes some crashes will have garbage that you absolutely don't need here, right? So most everything is copied and pasted through every channel here. Like you even see, I guess the hats might be a better example. Maybe not. Let's see. No. Oh, well, I guess it's a good sample I picked. But yeah, like even the snares tend to have like a lot of there's some personally for me, it's stuff that I just don't want because this is where the kick's living and I want the kick to have more. Well, there's my daughter there. I want the kick to have more. Hi, Genevieve. I want the kick to have its space here. So like everything with the kick and bass has its own section and stays mono because it's going to take, excuse me, it takes up all the energy within the track and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, let's go back to the claps. It's like I get into doing something else. So it's like I pick this. Pick this compressor on my claps. Okay. Make sure the volume's down. So I like this compressor because it's just, as you can see, it's just does a whole lot. See, it feels very like dull without it. It's like the compressor's just given all the color in general for it, and this is like a very go-to compressor with claps and snares and stuff like that. Some engineers in pop music like to do that. I really base my mixing around how those people mix because I went to school at Nimbus, and that's just things that I saw some folks do. And like you'll even watching some of the mix engineers on Dave Pensada's channel, if that's the engineer's name, I can't remember. Just there's a lot of engineers that's kind of their chosen thing to do. It's even the same with the other clap. This is like an off time clap. You can even hear. Sorry, that's one of them. And then that's the second one. Just gives that just gives a lot of just movement within a track. Then, and I had that stuff in pretty much all my tracks. It's just like I hear it being done in like disco house records. You can hear it very prominently in a lot of Deadmau5 records that he does that constantly. More of a lot of his old school records. Hi-hat, I don't really do much to. It's just an EQ, right? I use the Ozone Imager just to kind of give it a little more image per se, and it just ends up sounding brighter. The snare, I've kind of just hit it up in the mids and the 400 hertz area, low mids or whatever. The 200 hertz is kind of raised a bit to give it a little more like oomph. This is probably some type of annoying frequency that was interfering with other instruments, which is why it's pulled down to make certain things breathe. And then we have percussion. It's a shaker. And I've basically just trimmed things down. There's nothing, there's nothing really boosted in high end area because it's already it already has enough highs in it. And I feel if I'm going to add more high end to something like that, it's going to have this weird sizzle over processed sound that can be quite annoying. And especially when your music is turned up in a club, it's just gets really gross sounding. And the flexion and curve changes and blah, 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 blah. All this technical term that I don't want to get into. It's just, I don't know. I'm a very weird person when it comes. I take stuff in and it's just like the basics go through my brain and I understand how some of the basics work. But like I said, whatever. Then here I have 3 drum loops going. This is just to. It's just in the background, just to really give everything a lot more, per se, oomph. Let's just like solo all the drums, and you'll get what I'm saying. Why I do this. If you take all this stuff out, it gets very boring. Like here's one added. And they're not really loud. They're just in the background. And it just gives everything more swing. And it actually, adding these loops give like a little more of like the low mids thump that's missing in general with mixing. Everything's got to complement each other, whether it's the sounds that you pick. But yeah, here's the first loop here. Everything is, cut off. Depending how it is, sometimes I have it up. Sometimes I don't. And it depends like what I want to do. And then, I just trim things off and that's it. And gain stage it down. The second one, it's like the same thing. And I find just these overall help in the dynamics of your track. Because some of these are from Splice, and they're all from different packs. And then some people you're getting them from Splice, so everyone's done everything at a different decibel level. So, everything and the LUFS levels of all the loops are all different. So when basically lowering them all to a decibel level that is proper to my taste, they all complement differently within the mix. Yeah. Let's see. And then I guess we can move to the kind of New York compression per se that is done here. So everything, all of this, see, if you look at this green channel, everything is routed. It says drum comp is routed into here. I have stereo EQ happening because it's yellow. Because everything there's stereo things that are happening within the drums because some of the loops are in stereo. And if you see here, this is the panning that I've done within them. The drums are at a 43, so it's like around here. This is like one of the loops. Then the second drum loop is more wider, which is at a 79. You see here. And then drum loop 1 is at 63, which is like maybe around here within the stereo spectrum that exists. Then your ride is at 74, 70, 72. That's just what I picked. I feel like I would do something different, but that's just what I felt in general. And then the shakers are more 56. I feel like now I would do them at 30 because it all depends. Because like the more you pan to the middle is the more in your face it ends up, and the more you width out it goes behind the mix. So you got to think of everything as like an image, right? And it's all about just that imagery in general. Hi, Genevieve. And then so like here, if you look, it's a blue thing with the stereo comp I've done, which is it's cutting off the sides of the low end so it doesn't leak out in stereo. Probably does not need to be done because I'm already doing it in the mix, which I've shown at the start of the video. Not necessary probably, but I just do it in case. I'm just one of those people, you just don't know if something's going to go wrong. It's because working in the film business, you need to trim everything and make sure nothing goes wrong. So you got to make sure nothing's going to go wrong so that you can cover your butt, I guess it's just a post-traumatic thing that I get from being in the film business because it's a crazy business to make a living in. People are not very nice in that business. Let's see. So I have used a preset here that is from a pro engineer called Drum Bus. Probably not the best thing for people to do, to use presets, but I basically kind of played around with it. You can hear that it does do something different. The drums have less life without it. Now you can hear now you can hear that the drums have more life and there's just more per se movements, like right. uh yeah, so that's that for the drums. And then we already did the bass, but we can start with the instrumental compression. um and that's this the instrumental compression thing is basically, just done that. It has it's like I've per se I've split the track in half of everything. Like the drums has its own section because the drums are just its own thing within the song, but everything complements, right? um so here I'm not boosting anything. I'm just taking down frequencies that FabFilter's telling me to do, and I think it's best to kind of just pick, two in your low end area and two in your kind of like other section, which is I feel like in tracks everything kind of for me it's in the 200 hertz area that everything has this separation, and you need to like let it do its own thing together in these sections. And the bass does live in this. The bass line lives in with this in uh in this channel. It's almost just think of it in the sense of like, even some people might not get this, but like a film set, the sound department is totally different compared to the shooting set. The sound department helps the film, but it's part of it. The bass line is like that. It dips in with everything. Yeah, because sometimes some film sets just don't like sound departments. Bad joke. Let's see. So here I've just kind of done another preset, which is like a stereo compression. The reason why I've picked this one, because yes, it does give it life. And you can kind of see, because everything within this instrumental compression area, it's because there's a lot more stereo image within it. I find a lot of drums, they live more in the narrow area of your mix and want to be a little more in your face. And with the instruments, they live a little more width out of your mix. And the way of making them more in your face is more with the volume of making it louder in the mix decision that you make in order for it to feel. Because I mean, if you look at the piano, the piano is you can see here that it's panned at 48, so it's morely per se it's here in the stereo spectrum of what I'm hearing, and then the volume is complementing it to come out more, right? And then you have the pumping, you have the one knob that's turning it down every hit where the kick drum is happening. I really don't use this anymore. I do think it's great, but there was a thing that I found with it that it's if I turn up my monitor XT, I can hear like this hiss that it's doing, and you can hear this volume like so I kind of stopped using it and used like a different one that does it. Probably the better way of doing it is actually getting a compressor and then keying it in. But I want things that are I can just do on the fly, right? But yeah, we're talking about the compression, which I think I've done that. So, let's just move on to we were talking about this internal compressor. But yeah, I think I'm done moving on from that section. So now we'll go on with the piano and with the decisions, why I've EQ'd things a certain way. You can even see here, it's like I have just trimmed things down here. And this is like the side image. And 5 kilohertz is what our ears hear at a lot. It's like from 1 to 5 or something like that. And I just wanted that stereo, the outer image, which I demonstrated with the levels plugin. I just wanted that to be very prominent. The piano is like almost just piano is almost piano. The piano is almost a life for this track. I'm making it sound like I have Tourette's, which I don't. The piano is basically the life of the track in general. And then we move on to another universal audio plugin, which is Pultec. I actually have clones down here, which I do tend to use on other tracks in the low end area because it has this nice, the attenuation is very nice. I had this on a preset and then I screwed around with it, and as you can see, I think this preset before had the low end was up, and I trimmed that down because I didn't want it 100 hertz in that area for me in general. But yeah, you can see that it's boosting here at 5. The bandwidth, these here, if you read the instructions with these kind of like, it's like in a triangle, and I think these live together if I remember, and these live together, and then these are kind of like its own thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but at this point, I just used my ears at the time. But I know that these work nice together in unison because you're boosting and then attenuating. So it's like you're raising, and then the curve on it kind of does like this weird thing of like, it's attenuating. So it's kind of like pulling it down, but at the same time, like raising it sideways. It's like doing like a matrix thing, if I can remember. Hopefully I'm explaining that right. If I'm not, then please correct me in the comments. Whatever. Here I've just kind of set the plug child to just kind of just give it more life. I really don't work with a lot of compression. As you see, it's just I think this is like doing it really fast, but it's not, the threshold is not too crazy. You know, I usually just like the needle to just ping a little, and then it's just giving it life, right? This is like a very expensive compressor. It's like $50,000 or more, and I don't really know. There's nice clones of them. I'd love to own one, but don't really need one. But yeah, it just kind of colors it. You know, I don't really, you know, just colors. And then I use the vintage oral exciter. This thing is amazing. Now, this is doing a huge difference in the piano. This is without it. So, like, it sounds like there's a blanket on it. And then with it, it's like... So it's really weird. I don't understand what it does, and I've even talked to like a sound mixer I work with at work, and he's like, "Oh no, it's just using on stuff and it works." It just excites things. I'm not sure if it's a compressor or anything. I basically throw it on a preset, and I usually make sure everything is like this. These hums are off. I find these emulations of these hums very annoying. No, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. But usually with these hums, I usually turn up usually if I'm mixing, because I have to have this lower because of the mic. Usually when I'm mixing, I can kind of hear like some noise of some things. So I turn it up to figure it out where it's coming from. But yeah. I just don't use these emulations because they're annoying, and I already have like the summing there is already putting something on the mix that's doing these type of noises, right? And then we'll go here. This is just the whole image that's within it, right? This is the piano. I'm sorry, using the ozone imager here. Excuse me. So I'm using the ozone imager here, just to have things with a little width within it, right? And then here, that's just the filter going throughout the track. And then we have the nice melody here. We'll find a loop where we can go, where we can find it. You want to get off?
Yeah, and the phone is dead.
Okay, go get your brother to help you out charge it. There's a charger down there.
Okay.
So, so we're on the melody part. Let's see. So here, if you take a look here, I just kind of took things out. Absolutely no raising any other things in frequencies here. I felt sorry, Genevieve. You know what? Here we go. You get to go relax with your brother down there. Just going to have to charge for a bit. So I just have the compressor on this channel, which is probably giving it more color. So there's a brightness within that compressor, so why would I even bother to raise it here? And in general, I just thought it didn't need anything. There's some things that when mixing, why add more to it? You got to take mixing like it's like cooking. If you're adding too much of something within a pasta sauce, it is not going to taste good because it has too much of it, whether it's salt, and sometimes you're using a pinch of salt, and sometimes you're using more pepper than you need. It all depends what you want and taste, as it is. Mixing is the same. We'll move on to the strings. Over here. This is more where the climax is. Do it. Yeah, there we go. Or sorry, the build up. So the strings, general, not too much work, I don't think. The one knobber. I felt like, I have the one knob doing different ways. Like, I think at the bass, it's like at 5 and all to taste, right? Everything has to be kind of independent. Everything can't do the same thing. Also, you're not going to have any dynamics within the mix, right? And that's what helps. And then here, I'm just kind of blocking out stuff in certain areas. That are more ear piercing, which is just here. And even if you notice, even with me cutting it, there's more. It kind of just has like a more cleaner sound. I find people that don't mix or when they're new to mixing, they're always boosting things. Or if you're actually taking things away, it's actually making things brighter, and it's in general complementing. And the other thing is that I have everything going when I'm mixing. Like, everything's... You can even notice you can't even hear the strings as much anymore when it's disabled versus it's abled, right? So, like, look. The strings just come in, right? And that's from subtractive EQing and not adding. So you got to look at things because other frequencies are fighting with each other. Even FabFilter will tell you what's clashing in general. And like I don't follow everything it's telling me. You got to use your ears at the same time. And at the end of the day, not everything's gonna turn out perfect. Just do it. Have fun with it. You know. As I did just doing this, I had fun making it. That was the thing. It was fun making it. You know, and you just have to have fun. Let's move on to the Talkbox. I did not write down what mic I used for it, but most likely it was this mic. Because I think I switched before using a SM58, which is around here, which is just like a normal like dynamic mic. That I'm sure everyone. An SM58 is just the mic that everyone uses on stage, and you know what? It works perfectly with a Talkbox. If I was to use a condenser mic, it would be too much to handle. Like with the S's, like it would come in a lot, and this mic kind of does that a bit too. But it works great with the Talkbox, but I think a lot of people choose to use an SM58. I like to use this one, which is like a clone of the SM7, like it's the podcaster mic. Yeah, I like to use it with the Talkbox, and I think it works great. But let's when the time is right, you can even. I wanna make love to you all night. Okay, so everything is gonna. Excuse me, just catching my thoughts. So yeah, when the time is right. This is like with no effects on it, but make love to you all night. So I've like basically cut. When the time is right, I wanna make love to you all night. That's the thing on the master that's adding stuff. When the time is right, I wanna make love to you all night. When the time is right, I wanna make love to you all night. So like I said again, more subtractive mixing. It seems within here. Okay. I've used Fat Filter to kind of do the subtractive mixing for me. This is actually something I do a lot with vocals, because this is where like things kind of, it's just an annoying frequency that's there in this low mids that doesn't translate nicely when there's a song going. It just gets in the way. Usually like within podcasts or voiceovers, this kind of stuff kind of stays up a bit. Here I've shaved off the 200 hertz region, right? Because it's just not needed. And it's just you can see there's like vibration within these areas that's just not needed within the mix, and it gets in the way of the kick drum and whatnot. And so that's there. And then I have the Teletronic compressor, which is great. And I think I did some work going in before, and I think most likely, if I can pull this up, I don't write everything. I don't keep whatchamacallit. I don't keep a lot of data with some of the stuff doing, which I should, but like mostly when I use like analog equipment, I'll take pictures of it and keep it in a folder, but it really doesn't seem like I used it on this track. But like here, before printing in, I was probably doing this. A little more different maybe, but I was using the Manley Voxbox, probably doing a little bit of compression, blah, 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 blah. But that's what I used before going in. And then after, I used another Waves plugin. This is like Shep's, very world-renowned mix engineer. Mixes like Jay-Z records and all types of big names. This has like a saturator on it. When the time is right.
I wanna make love to you all night.
So there's saturating happening here. That's, you can tell,
When the time is right.
a little different.
When the time is right.
Just helps to bring things out. Then some de-essing happening. Interesting. Shep likes to use two de-essers with when using them with vocals. And I've picked like the 7. There was just like and you can really sweep with this plugin. Yeah. So you can sweep with this plugin as to like where you want it to compress that annoying frequency. So I picked like 7K and here like 5 kilohertz in this area. There was just this didn't feel comfortable to my ears when picking it. Then it looks like I really did nothing within like boosting. Yeah, it shows that I've picked no boosting or tonality here. And then I just used a FET compressor, which would probably, the VCA I think is like a SSL. The opt is like more like Christ. The opt is like more like a plug shot, like a tube compressor, I think. I'm sorry if I'm not explaining this stuff right, but yeah, I know that I'm pretty sure the VCA is more like an SL, which is something you probably might not want to use on your vocals. I usually use those on a mix, but this is, yeah. Excuse me if I'm giving the wrong advice, but this is just what I've done, and yeah, I think the FET is what it's just better to use. Sometimes I have to go through review with knowing these things, and sometimes I go back to Google and go, because sometimes I just forget these things. I go to Google, which is better to use, or blah 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 blah, right? But this is what I chose, and then, like I said, 1-to-3 ratio of compression, which is not very much. It's just tickling it. Attack is very slow, and then the release is very fast.
When the time is right.
Which is the result that's happening there. No, there's nothing on the inserts. Okay. So yeah, I really did no like boosting of EQ. Maybe I did it coming in, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. And that's basically because
when the time is right.
The Talkbox had enough. It sounded right to me, because when I'm mixing, I'm doing everything while everything is on. So I was just like, there's no need for it. So I never boosted anything. Probably doing the same with here. So here, this is like the harmonies.
When the time is right.
The harmonies are,
when the
lead is right in the middle, because I want the lead to be the lead. So it stands right in the middle, so you hear it the most. Then the harmony,
when the time is right,
which is more like a,
I wanna make love to you all night. When the time
and that's, this is like panned at 50, and then you have like the high harmony, which is at 99%. So it's just pulling everything.
When the time is right.
Yep, right.
I wanna make love to you all night.
And then I have everything printed as like a delay.
When the time is right, right. I wanna make love to you all night, all night.
And then basically I have like a Vox push, which is like short for vocal or whatever. So here I have this AMS doing like a gravity slap. So something that's kind of like spacey.
When the time is right, right. I wanna make love.
That's not the slap from it. That's a slap from the delay here. Because
when the time is right,
everything is printed all into one channel. Everything's printed all into one channel, so it just does this cool reverb ping pong slap, and then I have the analog annoying sound. You probably can't hear it, but like when I'm mixing, I have this knob here at a higher volume so I can hear all this annoying stuff, because stuff like that will leak into the master at certain areas. It's just you can even talk to, I think, a majority of people. People just hate this. I hate it. I just want everything to be clear and clean. I guess it's different with type of music you do, because live music, it's live, so you want to have more of it the realness to it. And, you know, I feel like just with doing dance music, everything has to be like clean and in your face type stuff, right? Yeah. So then I have the Vox verb, right? This is the actual. This is a reverb unit. That's
when the time is right. I wanna make love to you all night.
And you can hear the difference, that there's just more width, and everything's panned 100%. So it's just sitting in the back of the mix and just flooding everything within the image.
When the time is right.
Right, and you can see it just makes it sound like it's more wide in color or sound. Right?
When the time is right. I wanna make love to you all night.
Right? And then we have a delay again. I love this delay, which is the Korg delay, and I just have it at one.
When the time is right. I wanna make love to you all night.
And I usually like to compliment the delay a little more than the reverb. The reverb is kind of just like the color within the image of that. You know.
When the time is right. I wanna make love.
And then, sorry, I forgot to go over the reverb stuff. So I've ducked some EQ out that's just annoying within it. You can even tell here.
When the time is right. I wanna make love.
It just kind of gets in the way. Like here, you might even hear it better. It's like,
when the time is right. I wanna make love to you all night.
so even just see, you can hear like a huge difference. Like it just, with not taking subtraction, doing subtraction EQ helps a lot, because it just subtracts things and makes things super bright. Quentin, you got to turn down the TV, please. It just makes things a lot more bright. Like, just listen. Just, yeah.
When the time is right.
See, it sounds like very
I wanna make
dark.
love to you all night.
And everything's just brightened up, and everything just resonates more through the speakers, right? You you need to give your speakers more. You have to give your speakers more just time to vibrate. And if you have just too many frequencies clashing, the speaker's not going to move as smooth, like in general, right? So when you're subtracting things, you're giving the speaker more room to just move smoothly, because the speaker just wants to move in and out smoothly, and that's what gives everything a more clear mix. Hopefully I'm demonstrating that properly. And then here, I've keyed in the compressor with the reverb, so every time my vocal comes in, which is me on the Talkbox, every time the vocal comes in, it's basically compressing the noise down of the reverb. So, like, check this.
When the time is right, I wanna make love to you all night. When the time is right, I wanna make love to you all night.
So it's giving it more control, right? So like with it bypass, you can hear the reverb is just all over the place.
When the time is right.
Right? And then versus this,
When the time is right.
It's controlling the reverb in general, and with the subtractive EQ happening, it's just the EQ that's happening. The frequencies are pushing through, but those EQs that are down are just making it very lush and beautiful to punch through the mix properly, and it's not taking up all the room, right? And then the delay, it's kind of like the same thing where it's an ear thing.
When the time is right, I wanna make love to you all night.
Yeah, I've done this. Yeah, it's an even here with the delay here. It's done that, right? So we can start with the piano now. Why not? So the piano, I did add some reverb to it and delay. Melody has delay too, but let's go into the piano. How long is this recording? Who wants to watch a video this long? This is like 100, like an hour and 25 minutes. Okay. Let's see. So I'll solo the piano. Let's get it to a section where it's just everything's going. Here. Quentin, please. You gotta turn it down, please. I said to turn it. Use your headphones. I told ya. Oh, Lord. Use the headphones, please. Ugh. Children, wah. Makes me want to cry. Okay, so we're on the... So here we have a plate reverb, right? This is for the piano. With, and then we have just some subtractive EQ happening, and then the same thing with the compressor, controlling the reverb a little more. You can hear just by itself how it's just like really big. And then with it, within, right? Oh, Christ. So, like, you can just hear that the reverb is a lot more in your face now, where without this sidechain compression of triggering the compressor of the piano to go blah, right? Even it's like beautiful and pleasant to the ears. It just gives more to it, you know? It's a great thing to do when you're working with your rooms and your reverb in general, to do some subtracting of EQ, because you've already boosted the main element already, right? This is all into an aux output, input coming, aux inputting to an aux and coming out. Yeah, and it helps. And then I have it routed into the SSL and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of things going on, and I'm sorry if it's getting complicated. You know, it'd be a lot easier if there was a shooting crew and someone asking me questions. I don't know. Then here we have the delay on the piano. Oh, sorry. I have everything in a different template now, but whenever I solo effects, it's all enabled. So I don't know if this is like me being lazy, but I really did nothing here. This is just, I had a preset and I picked it wide and lush. And that's pretty much what it did. And if you listen with it being with everything, that's it, right? Then the melody, kind of the same thing. Keyboard space, so it's almost the same thing of just doing something different. The settings on here are different. Yeah, this is like kind of like a chorus delay. You can see right there a panning thing. It's just an ear candy effect thing that's happening with it. Gotta solo the thing wherever it is. Okay, melody. And I didn't really add any reverb to this effect because I felt like it was kind of already. You can hear that it's already laid within the synth. And the delay see, these two things have kind of done the work in general for it. And I just added like ping pong delay. You can even just hear the difference now. See, it's just boring without those plugins. In general, it's just given more movement. But yeah, that's kind of a layout of this track, and hopefully it's cool for you to take in. I'm sorry that the video's so long, but I got my children to look after at the same time. But yeah, I'm just gonna work on some music after. Have a nice day. Bye bye.